With a record number of Iowans and Americans voting by mail, we decided to put the post office to the test. This is the chance for senators to make their final arguments on this bill. It's the furthest it's gone. Elizabeth Warren's famous selfie line is almost as long as the road to the White House, but voters here say they think she has what it takes to go head-to-head against President Donald Trump. It has to go back to the House and pass again, which will likely happen. Dan?
Has the governor indicated if she'll sign it?
We can assume that she might because this was part of her education plan. Your fundraising has been really strong in Iowa. The last Des Moines Register poll, you slipped up a little bit. Is there a disconnect there?
There are going to be some ups and downs in the polls.
Republicans saying this is really all in response to a lot of the racial justice protests that we saw. Former Vice President Joe Biden did not reach the threshold that he needed. I'm in a room of 604 people, so he needed 91 to hit that 15%. Most Republicans have been calling for senators like yourself running for president to recuse themselves from the impeachment trial if he goes to the Senate. Is that something that you see would be a conflict of interest for you?
No.
Governor Reynolds said she only became aware of this discrepancy last week. William Burt isn't afraid of owning up to his mistakes that led him to prison.
I went 4 times, so it took that many times for me to really wake up.
But when he was behind bars, he discovered a talent.
I'm very blessed.
Barbering.
You're official when you have the barber pole in your shop.
Something that ignited a sense of purpose in him.
It came to a point to where I had to make a decision if I wanted to keep treading backwards or if I really wanted to try to gain some ground.
Now Burt is trying to gain some miles.
I can take it anywhere.
With his new wheels. The convict turned barber has dreamed up a plan to take his talents to the streets with what you could call the Barbermobile.
I want my clients comfortable.
From bringing his services to people with disabilities to small towns without a barbershop.
That's where Cut Kings would fit in and try to fill that gap.
Now, the one problem with Burt's big idea is having a mobile barbershop isn't legal, but he's hoping lawmakers at the state capitol will fix that.
Passes into law finally, but
legislation is making its way through both chambers to change that, all in hopes of allowing people like Burt to freshen up some hairdos on the fly.
This is enabling people to be able to go up the economic ladder, to be entrepreneurs, to be innovative.
But for Burt, it isn't about the money or himself, really.
The reward for me would be like the ripple effect, like I'm just a rock in the water. Hopefully this causes other barbers to get out and do.
Although the odds might have been stacked against him, he knows he's on the right path now.
I don't make many excuses. As you can see, I'm here. I got 5 or 6 felonies, 4 trips to prison. I could have been quit, but I'm here, so.
At the State House, Monica Madden, Channel 13 News.
Don't shoot.
For the past week nationwide, protesters have taken to the streets, demanding to change the systems that allow racism to persist in America. And in Iowa, state lawmakers taking action with a new policy proposal.
So you guys need to pass laws that will protect me, people that look like me.
This is where we start to turn our pain into progress.
The 3-part proposal would ban police chokeholds, make it illegal to hire police officers with a history of serious misconduct, and give attorney generals clear directive to investigate police misconduct.
We can begin to respond to the crisis, to bring justice to George Floyd, and work towards a day where no Iowan has to live in fear of becoming another hashtag.
Something Democrats know they need bipartisan support on, with Republicans controlling the House, Senate, and governor's office.
People are in the streets today because of the fierce urgency of now.
We have our ear now, so let's act now.
Still, no clear signal on where she stands on the proposal.
Doesn't mean no. It doesn't mean it can't continue to move forward.
The governor today instead stressing the progress her administration has made with criminal justice reform.
Restoring felon voting rights is another priority of mine.
But a bill passed last night in the Iowa House that would do so has a restriction criticized by advocates.
Prohibiting people from voting, paying to voting is Jim Crow, so that needs to go in that bill.
Requiring felons to pay full victim restitution before their voting rights can be restored.
Push forward with pressure to make sure that those conversations manifest themselves into real action.
At the State House, Monica Madden, WHO 13 News. Insufficient funding has become a familiar battle cry from Democrats at the State House.
And schools can't improve if they have less money to spend.
And this bill just continues that horrid tradition.
But this time, a specific provision in the education funding bill is firing up more than just the Democrats.
There is a time and place for disagreement, and it should not come at the expense of my children and their education.
Educators, parents, and even a student spoke out in the Senate Education Subcommittee today about a proposal to award more funding to school districts that were in compliance with in-person learning requirements during the pandemic.
There are other more appropriate mechanisms to address noncompliance and not penalizing the children in that district.
A provision that critics say singles out the Des Moines Public School District for its decision not to hold in-person classes due to safety concerns.
My 4 children deserve the same amount of funding.
It's making the children of Des Moines the whipping boys for the dispute between the governor and the Des Moines school.
No lobbyists are registered in favor of either the Senate or House bill, leaving the defense up to Republicans.
Their unwillingness to educate those 31,000 children that you've asked me to think about, their unwillingness to educate them from August to November left it so that they did not have those additional costs that other districts did.
Education Chair Senator Amy Sinclair arguing the schools that kept their doors open endured more costs and deserve to be thanked.
If you don't have kids in classrooms, you don't have those expenses. It's not about revenge. It's about the practical way to best use the resources we have before us.
At the State House, Monica Madden, WHO 13 News.
WHO 13's Monica Madden shares now what they believe should be the path forward and how politicians can make it happen.
How could you do this if you weren't optimistic?
Decades of forward looking in this industry has brought farmers like Randy Miller through some difficult times.
I think there are better days ahead for agriculture.
And in recent years, a slew of obstacles for Iowa farmers. Severe weather from floods to droughts, trade wars, and battles over the renewable fuel standard.
It's hard to be growing a crop that you can't lock in a profit on with the uncertainty of not knowing whether there's a government payment coming or not.
Drive 20 miles northeast of Miller's property, and you'll hear the same from another lifelong farmer, Matt Russell.
Taking all of that together, without these subsidies, we would be in probably an economic decline.
In this year alone, the federal government has given roughly $30 billion in aid to farmers.
We're just like in a holding pattern, and we're just pouring money in to kind of keep everybody afloat.
And by everyone, Russell also means Iowans who have never set foot on a farm.
Those threats are not just unique to agriculture. They're threats to the whole economy, and we've seen that.
In an election year, Miller and Russell are like any other voter. They just want someone who will improve their way of life. But also, like most voters, they differ some on the approaches. Russell says the issues farmers face are not being fully addressed in many Republican policies.
The dollars lost because of this administration's approach to biofuels and really the failure of Iowa's Republican delegation in D.C. to hold Trump accountable.
He says while the administration's aid has helped farmers, it's only a short-term solution.
We're not seeing a vision where farmers are partnering to change the systems.
For Russell, that means policies like helping farmers reduce carbon emissions that would help address some of the climate threats the Midwest is seeing.
Democrats across the board are saying we need to pay farmers for providing this essential service.
That's where
Miller, however, says there are policies he has benefited from.
China has come back to the table and bought quite a bit of product. USMCA went into effect in July, so it's better.
He views the current challenges as not something one party or the other has the end-all answer to.
This has gone on for more than 4 years, so both parties are working for farmers.
Russell's vote may be set in stone, but Miller's might hinge on a few factors.
It goes back to demand, trade, biodiesel, the environment. All of those things are important. It doesn't matter who's in office. It's a matter of working through those issues.
Regardless of what happens in November, their approach as farmers will not change.
As farmers, that's what we do every day. Is we wake up, we solve problems.
And even though Matt Russell said that he's going to be voting for the Biden-Harris ticket, he said he has to hand it to Republicans for over the past decades, really just speaking to rural people, not just in Iowa, but all across the Midwest and the issues that they care about the most. So he said just now he's starting to see Democrats kind of work on that politicking, if you will.
You're starting to see why some of these farmers are torn. Thank you,
Absolutely.
Monica.